Hey, what's up guys and gals? My name is Rick9G. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about I Love Lucy. I want to thank all the supporters. We're getting so close to 100,000 subscribers. But today I want to talk about an actress who played a very important role in I Love Lucy's history. Of course, her name is Elizabeth Patterson. Now, if you don't know, Elizabeth Patterson played the very famous Mrs. Trumbull on I Love Lucy. What did she do essentially on the show? She was the neighbor of the Ricardoes, and she was the one who would take care of little Ricky whenever the Ricardoes and the Mertzes would go do their shenanigans and so forth. She would be the one who would taking care of the baby. I'm gonna let you know in this video how she saved I Love Lucy. You may think, how is this even possible? What happened? Was this something behind the scenes? Well, I'm going to tell you the dilemma that unfortunately happened on this show. Something that could have ended I Love Lucy, but didn't. And I'll tell you why it was so important. Now, before I get into the actual dilemma, I want to talk a little bit about Elizabeth Patterson. This is not an exhaustive look at her or her work, or even her work on I Love Lucy. With my count, she appeared roughly a dozen times on I Love Lucy, all the time as Mrs. Trumbull, but once time as Mrs. Willoughby. She was the wife of one of the persons in the marriage license episode. I won't talk about that much in this episode. I want to talk about her playing the role of Mrs. Trumbull. Now, that was very important because I Love Lucy was doing so well in its first and second season. However, they did see a little bit of a ratings dump, a little bit of a ratings decline. Nothing too crazy, but they did see it, and they thought they needed something for the show. What happened, of course, is that Lucy became, in real life, pregnant with little Ricky, or that is little Desi, and they thought, oh my goodness, what do we do? Do we cover up the pregnancy? There's a whole video I can make on this itself and why the pregnancy was so controversial, but they decided to actually air the pregnancy, air that as part of the story, and in fact that made the ratings spike on the show. And so in fact 75% of all people who owned a television was watching I Love Lucy at the time when the episode appeared, when they went to the hospital, which is insane. So much of America was watching that episode. It's mind-blowing. But what was so interesting was at this moment where the Ricardoes and of course the Addamses had their baby son, this helped the ratings spike. However, for the story of I Love Lucy, it created a big problem. They made only really one episode regarding the baby, No Children Allowed, where Mrs. Trumbull, the character, was there and she complained about the baby. But after that, they had a big problem. They didn't know what to do with little Ricky, and that is because his character had to be in the show. They couldn't just have a baby on the show and then not include it. But what? Was Lucy going to go running around doing her crazy physical comedy holding the baby? Well, no. The baby had to be somewhere else, off camera. And sometimes the Ricardoes themselves had to go and do something. Where would they put the baby? Well, they had to have Mrs. Trumbull take care of the baby. And that's the dilemma that I'm talking about, guys and gals. You have a storyline where you have these two characters who are married, have a baby. Great, the ratings spike and everything. But now you have a show, as I mentioned, that's focused so much on physical comedy, so much in comedy in general. Well, they were at a crossroads. Would the stories have to always include the baby? Well, no, that's kind of ridiculous, right? There's no more focus on Lucy. There's no more focus on Ricky and the Mertzes. So they had to kind of push the baby storyline aside for the entire rest of the series, which is crazy. So they would, yes, show the baby every once in a while, but he was never really part of the big plots of the story. Yes, when little Ricky grew up, he was, and there's a reason for that. They actually fast forward his age a year. That's why all of a sudden you see a little baby crawling around little Ricky, and then all of a sudden he's speaking. That year between 5 and 6 was accelerated. Anyway, that's a story for another video. But my assertion here in this video is that they decided, well, why don't we have the character of Mrs. Trumbull, instead of being angry and upset in the No Children Allowed episode, why don't we make her the de facto babysitter? Sometimes it's really funny because you see Lucy and Ethel, they're like, hey, let's go somewhere, let's go out shopping. And then it's almost in passing where she says, yeah, little Ricky will be watched by Mrs. Trumbull. Oh, the baby's with Mrs. Trumbull. They kind of add it in there so that you as a audience member don't really worry about the baby, about, hey, where's little Ricky? It's kind of a tie-in to the loose ends. And yes, she saved I Love Lucy. Well, that is the character of Mrs. Trumbull. It was a perfect out. It was a perfect, hey, Lucy has to go to the chocolate factory. Hey, Lucy has to go and play golf. The four of them, the Mertzes, the Ricardoes, where do they bring the baby? Well, they can't, so she's staying with Mrs. Trumbull. It makes so much sense, guys and gals, and I am so happy that Mrs. Trumbull was there, quote unquote, behind the scenes taking care of the baby so we could see the shenanigans from the Ricardos and the Mertzes. It's absolutely great. It's simple, but at the same time, it's pretty genius. I want to know your thoughts on this. Have you ever noticed how they kind of pushed the baby aside throughout the course of the series and just kind of dumped it on Mrs. Trumbull, and she never charged them, according to the story, which is absolutely amazing. We'll see you next time, guys and gals. Thank you so much for watching this video, for enjoying the I Love Lucy videos and the other content. With over 1,300 videos on my channel, you will never have a time where you'll get bored because I have something for everyone. Go ahead and explore. We'll see you next time, and don't forget, be hopeful. Thank you so much to my Diamond tier patrons: Citizen Kane 359, Paul T, Ricky, Gary N, David D, Sally N, Yasmin G, and Lori K. If you want to be part of the Patreon family, don't forget to take a look at the description with many exclusives that you can enjoy.